Okay, students, so welcome back. So this video will help you to close in on your full understanding of the content of circular flow and individuals and firms and how it interoperates with things in the macroeconomy. It'll also help you understand the impact in future chapters and lectures and lessons on monetary policy and fiscal policy, central banks, international economics as well. So, and there are other videos on my channel here that no doubt will be helpful to you. So if you want, feel free to subscribe to the channel or just go and view them, at your leisure. Okay, so let's get started. So right here we have kind of this crude, this is my handwriting, my drawing, my apologies, of the circular flow that you've encountered in your text. And so the circular flow is great. It's necessary. It's indispensable to an introductory level course like you're taking. We start off with the households, and the households contribute what? The factors. What are the factors? The factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, right? Now, those are just buckets. We call them pedagogical reference points as teachers, meaning that we just simplify the real world. There's a lot of other factors of production, but too many to list and too many to lecture and too many to be quizzed on to actually make any kind of progress that's meaningful. So we just bucket them into land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Those are the factors of production. And those are given to the production process of what? Goods and services by individuals and households, right? So they contribute the factor market, all the different types of things that we all bring to the market, to the economic market, to produce goods and services. And who do we exchange those with? We exchange our factors of production with the firms. The firms are the businesses, the government entities that produce both private and public goods and services. And then those firms then produce those goods and services with our help and sell it back to households and other consumers elsewhere. Okay, so this is the circular flow of those things. But then what is going the opposite direction with these dollar signs? And that would be money, right? Money is really the principal artifact here that we want to see, that when the goods and services and the factors of production, the factors are, distributed, their value is added to the production process, money's going the opposite direction. Down here, you typically see this as well. You have your banking system. Up here, you have your import-export market. That's outside. Those are both outside the circular flow. And that's important because banking can represent either a leak of what? A leak of money. Leak, as in something's coming out, something's being removed from the circular flow. Well, money can leak out of circular flow and into the banking system. Well, the banking system, it can leak out and become what? Different kinds of savings. That's what the S stands for. Various kinds of savings. If money's being saved, it's not going anywhere. There was an economist at one time I heard say that money's like water. It has to go somewhere. Well, if it's not acting like its nature, like water, if it doesn't have any velocity to it, if it's just resting, right, and earning interest, okay, so that it can be used for other production of goods and services, then it's a leak from circular flow, generally speaking. Money can also be from the banking sector, banking system, injected into circular flow. What do you think the L stands for? If it's an injection of money from the banking system, what do you think the L stands for? Some of you probably got it. That's right. Loanable funds, right? Loans. Same thing with imports and exports. Now, this can get kind of tricky. It's almost in a way a reverse intuition here, because you would think that a leak from circular flow would be when, like a domestic, let's say we're talking about the United States economy here, that a leak from circular flow would be when we export goods and services or goods. It's not the case. The primary attribute here is money as the medium of exchange for goods and services. So if we are exporting goods and services, our goods and services, then we are receiving what in return? Money. And then that would be what to the circular flow? An injection in. So money would be coming into circular flow because we are pushing out goods, okay? Same thing if we import foreign goods. Like, let's say China makes an automobile and a lot of Americans buy that automobile. And that automobile is imported into the United States economy here. Well, we then send what? Money to China, and China receives that money, okay? And so their GDP, their gross domestic product, rises as a result of that, okay? But we have a leak from circular flow as a result of that. Indispensable, necessary, you have to see this view in order to progress further in an introductory course, but it lacks one dimension that I'm going to teach you here. And this will really help you to improve in the concepts ahead, okay? The most scarce resource in all of economics is time. Time could be thought of as the fifth factor of production. Time is the most scarce resource. There's a time value of money. There's a time value of production of goods and services. Time can, as you encounter the production possibilities frontier, time can determine where you're operating, how close you are to that PPF, that production possibilities curve, that frontier. It can also determine whether or not if you can go beyond that PPF, right? And that curve, okay? So what we have here is what's called the supply chain view. And it's a very simplified representation, much like this. In the real world, there'll be tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands stages of production. This first stage here, the R stands for raw material mining. Okay, I'll write that all in. Not the whole thing, but just the raw material mining. Let's give two examples, one good and one service. An example of raw material mining, like the Chinese automobile here, might be, or an American automobile even, might be the mining of raw material to make that car, the iron ore. Let's say it's an American-made automobile, and you have a firm that mines, that digs into the earth in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right, and grabs that iron ore or that rubber or the pieces that will eventually become plastics, whatever it is, or maybe it's wood and they cut down some trees, whatever it is that we're making. We're talking about automobiles here, so we'll just stick with iron ore. And then they then sell that iron ore to a producer. And the producer is going to manufacture that and transform it and add value to it. But that raw material miner uses the factor markets, the factors of production, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. The land is the earth. The labor are the individuals that help to do the mining. Capital is the machinery and the tools that the laborers use and know how to use. And they have a factor of production, knowledge, and how to use it, right? And entrepreneurship are the individuals that drive towards equilibrium, efficiency, and new outcomes within the production process, greater outcomes, or new production processes, okay? Entrepreneurs bring together the factors of production, the land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurs bring it together. And so anybody can be an entrepreneur, right? There are different grades, right, of entrepreneurs, different kinds of entrepreneurs. It's a whole nother lecture, a whole nother discussion. But entrepreneurs aren't just the siloed lens view that so many of us have, from like the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates and things like that, right? Entrepreneurs really are anybody and everybody that bring together the factors of production. Now, there's a qualifier in that, but again, that's another lecture, another discussion, okay? And now, this might be the same company, right? They could just be vertically integrated. It's called vertical integration, where you own this stage of production and this stage. But again, in the real world, there's tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of stages. And oftentimes, especially in global markets, which most goods are global now in their production processes, we're talking about a lot of players, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of firms, a lot of factors of production, a lot of households and individuals in a lot of different places. And so the production process is going to be achieve what you also learned about, the division of labor and specialization, right? So if you try to do everything, you're going to be less efficient. That's the idea of opportunity cost that you encounter. And that's how opportunity cost hits the real world, okay? You can't do everything. Right, some companies try to do everything, but even like Amazon doesn't do everything. Walmart doesn't do everything. It might appear that way because they got so much stuff, But the truth is, they only make up certain aspects of the production process. In fact, they do very little manufacturing and raw material mining, if any at all. I don't think they do any, to be honest with you. They fit into another category, namely distribution. So the car gets manufactured there, the different pieces and the different stages. So let's say you could break this stage out into 100 different stages of production, different types of parts are going to be made from that iron ore. Let's also use the service. Let's say you in this class, you're taking this class, you're learning things about economics, you're learning about production processes. Maybe you're an MBA student. Maybe you will be an MBA student. Maybe this is just an elective for you and you're going to go on to law school or medical school. Well, as you get into law school or medical school or nursing school, you're going to have to learn your knowledge and skills in order to render services, medical services to a patient. And those things are going to be critical for life or death, sickness or health, or in the legal sense, towards freedom and independence or jail time, or fines and fees or equity, okay, or whatever kind of specialization you have in law. And so you have a production process here. And in this class and in those future classes, you're engaged, if you're on the service side, like nursing, medical, law, in raw material mining of knowledge. Just learning this as a part of your medical program or legal program or MBA program is incredibly powerful for you. I promise you, as somebody that I've achieved a really successful career, okay? I promise you, just having this lens here will serve you greatly and mightily in your career, whatever your career is, okay? That production process, you're now transforming that knowledge into useful items, and then they get distributed. So back to the car example, right? Or Amazon or Walmart, right? Those goods you buy at Walmart, those goods you buy from Amazon, Amazon is a distributor. Walmart has more distribution than it has retail, okay? And so that automobile is going to then be distributed based off of what? Demand. So when we say distribution, we're talking about a process that's moving down this angle here, down this curve. That's supply. So supply is moving this way and demand is moving this way. Now that's quite different than what you typically see, where you see the two crisscrossing and you get that equilibrium view right between the two, right in the center of the X, supply and demand, right? It's quite different. But it's an important perspective. You want to have multiple perspectives on this stuff to fully grasp it, or at least get close to a full grasp, right? So that distribution then is sent out to various locations, which is why you see in different parts of the country, there's a lot more cars for sale. Major metropolitan statistical areas, MSAs, are going to have a lot more car dealerships and a lot more variety of cars. Certain parts and more rural areas are going to have certain kinds of cars and not a whole lot of others. And not a whole lot of cars in period, because population isn't there and demand just isn't there. Consumer preferences, right? Tastes and preferences, all the various shifters of demand and things that help to move along the demand. The prices are going to be different, right? So there's money to be made, but it's based off of demand. So it's distributed based off demand. And you see I have a arrow flowing upwards for supply and an arrow flowing downward for demand, but I also put a dollar sign in G and S. That's a G and that's an S. Goods and services, okay? And a dollar sign because money's flowing upward. Because as factors of production are made into value-added inputs at each stage of production, they are paid for their work. So the raw material miners are paid by the producers are paid by the distributors, and then the distributors are paid by whom? The retailers. So a car dealership is going to pay for that car. And then they're going to sell the car to you and to me at a higher price in order to make a profit margin. Okay? And different profit margins depending on different markets. Okay? Same thing with medical and law, right? I remember in my military career, I spent 20 years in the Army. I knew a lot of medical doctors and a lot of attorneys that had graduated school and decided that was going to be their best option. They did an opportunity cost calculation. They could have made more in the civilian world as a doctor or as an attorney, but they got their student loans paid off by joining the military and serving in that capacity in the military and saving lives or helping with legal troubles in the military. So there was a trade-off, opportunity cost, right? And so they were a part of this distribution process of these professionals that were being distributed, right? Okay. And then that's the retail sales. So again, time is perhaps the most valuable resource in the production process. I would argue that it is the most valuable resource, in addition to all the others. And they're all valuable. They're all needed. The labor factor of production, you can't do without it. Capital, land, all of it. You must have entrepreneurship. But time is the most scarce, which is why I say it's the most valuable, because time is the most scarce. And so this is just another view of circular flow, right? This is a supply chain view, which, as we're all aware, because we've all lived through the pandemic, right? This became quite important to all of us, the supply chain economy and understanding what was wrong. And then the impact of things like lockdowns and regulations and inflation through monetary policy and fiscal policy and all that kind of stuff, right? Whole other topics of discussion, but it all impacts and it all works together, right? And at the end of the day, it's technical, yeah. There's a lot of things going on, but there's people involved and decision makers and all these processes. And that's why it's a social science, because at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing. What is that one thing? Human action, the human actors and the choices they make. Human action on the demand side, human action on the supply side, how good, how bad the supply is, right? How much of these factors there are, right? How much of these goods and services are in demand, all that kind of stuff. See you on the other side.